Did you drive?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I drove all the way here, but with no windscreen wipers in the rain. Nobody tested the brakes properly, have they?
Testing the brake yet. Test them now. Seriously, just make sure they work.
Yeah, I mean they work, but I don't know if they'll work well at high speed.
We've got no windscreen wipers.
Yeah, you definitely need to press the brakes like nice and early. Oh man, my left quad is going to be bigger than my right.
Dan hanging out the door.
I bought this old school bus and I am going to convert it into a full-time home and then drive across the continent to jiu-jitsu gyms and promote the idea of traveling and training. So the bus is a Mercedes Vario 814, 1999, quite old, but the engine is still in good nick. 260,000 on the clock, which for a Mercedes engine is anywhere from halfway through the life to maybe even a quarter of the way through. Some people say Mercedes engines will last like 1,000,000 miles. She needs quite a bit of attention, but the engine is good, the gearbox is good, and everything else is fixable. I've always loved travel and meeting new people, and I've been lucky enough to have done quite a bit of that in my life already, including living, working, and even running businesses in other countries. Between late 2013 and last October 2021, I was living and working in Southeast Asia. For the last few years, including the first year and a half of the pandemic, I was running my own restaurant in Bangkok, Thailand, which I built inside the gym where I was training jiu-jitsu, Bangkok Fight Lab. I had hoped to see out the pandemic and thrive in the following years. But when the fourth lockdown started, it was clear that my business just wouldn't survive. So I packed up and came back to the UK to live with my dad while I worked out what I was now going to do with my life. My BJJ coach here in the UK introduced me to Dan. He's the father of one of our junior students who converted his own Sprinter van during the pandemic and did an amazing job. And he said that he was happy to help me with my build. After a few demoralising and frustrating months of looking at expensive panel vans like Dan's, my friend Paula found this old Mercedes Vario ex-school bus for sale in a local Facebook group, and suddenly within days I found myself driving it back to my dad's place. I had dreams of using my dad's jack-of-all-trades skills, as well as his workshop and tools, to help me convert the bus. But we soon realised that he wasn't really able to help that much, as he wasn't the fit, strong, able-bodied man that he'd once been. Luckily, Dan came to the rescue and has done most of the heavy hard work of removing the remaining seats and flooring. That job revealed quite a bit of rotted metal chassis, which needed replacing, so I had to find a welder. I put a shout out in a local Facebook group and was given Jake as a contact. He came to look at the bus and said that he'd done nothing but work on van conversions for most of the pandemic, and he also lived in a bus when he was a kid. So he's the perfect fit. I needed to get the engine fully checked out before I spent any more money on the bus, and through a family recommendation, I found Rich, who's reassuringly busy a lot of the time, but has checked the engine and given me the green light to go ahead with the metalwork. He's jacked the bus up and taken off the back wheels. He's currently working on some issues with the brakes and will help with electrics later down the road. So I had my expert team. Dan, the handyman, who had already converted his own vehicle, Jake, the welder, who had lived on a bus once himself, and Rich, the mechanic, whose expert advice gave me the confidence to go ahead and start the conversion. At some point, I will need a carpenter who can help me build the furniture, and I have found one, but that introduction will come in a future video. Before I handed money over for the bus, my brother Jay had scooted under the bus and told me that the chassis was quite rusty in places. He actually advised against buying it. He has his own converted library bus, and he knew the pitfalls only too well. But I just didn't want to believe it, and I felt like because the engine seemed fine that it was still worth the price regardless. However, as the bus sat here, more and more bits of rusty chassis kept dropping onto the ground, and as we removed flooring, we could see just what state it was in. But I've seen too many van life YouTubers reveal the terrible rusty state of their new vehicle, only to strip it back, sort it out, and build it back up into a really impressive conversion. So I knew it was possible, and all three of my expert helpers said it was possible too. There's definitely been times over the last 8 months when I've questioned my sanity and had to give myself a little pep talk. Everyone who sees the bus says the same thing. Well, it's a big project. Big project, big project. I've heard that so many times. But it occurred to me the other day that big projects are really only a series of small projects, and small projects are a series of tiny projects, and tiny projects are just step-by-step tasks. Keeping this in mind gives me resolve to get this big project finished and get the show on the road someday, no matter how long it takes. Once the bus is roadworthy, I'll take her for some test trips around the UK first, and the idea is to visit any friendly gym with a place that I can park up, get some training in, film my visit and what the gym is like, show what the local area has to offer a visitor, and generally promote the idea of training while travelling. I'll also be carrying a bunch of mats with me so that I can get a mobile training area set up anywhere flat. I love the idea of introducing new people to the sport and also giving current students an unusual and unique training experience. Over the last 10 years, I've trained at over 50 different gyms around the world, as well as in some pretty epic spots, and I'd love to provide that kind of experience for others too. I'm not going to do step-by-step build videos because there's a lot of people doing that on YouTube already and doing a great job. I will take footage of the bus build as we go along and put together kind of progress videos every few months. So if you're interested in watching the progress of the bus and videos generally on Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Jiu Jitsu in general, grappling and traveling, then you know what to do. Okay, so that's all from me for now. See you in the next video.